Dr. Judy here, Dr. Judy WTF, what the Freud. And tonight's topic is a better me plus another better me equals a better we. And I'm inspired to do this show because it's so important that we do everything that we can to be the best of our best, and then to pick someone else who is also um, elevating themselves to be the best of their best, so that when you do get together, you create something that I really value a lot called synergy. So let's talk about that and what to do to better yourself and make yourself a better me, and then how to attract a better me also, so that you can be a better we. And this is not only romantically so, it works for partnerships, it works for friendships, it works for family members, your own children. Everybody needs to elevate themselves, because if we're going to just complain about how horrible other people are in relationships and do nothing to self-improve, well, maybe you're looking at part of the problem. I'm sure you're looking at part of the problem by just looking in the proverbial mirror. Okay, so let's look in the mirror and take a look and see what's got to go about ourselves that doesn't work for us and doesn't work for other people, and then how to uncover what doesn't work for us and start to grow again. So, as you know, I created a pathway to healing called the Mind Map, and the Mind Map is predicated on looking deeply into childhood wounds. So if you look at the panels, you will see that panel 1, 2, and 3 are the wounds, the reactions, and the encodings, which represent our past. And to detail this out a little bit more, the darkness are the shadows that cast over us and limit our growth, limit our becoming the best of our best. And the light is our maximal potential, which really is impossible to get to in one lifetime. And I don't know if there are other lifetimes, but it's really, really difficult to elevate to the point of maximum potential, because it's unlimited. Okay, that's the unlimited version of yourself. So if you look at those dark spots on the light, those metaphorically represent wounds of childhood, wounds like verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, smothering, narcissistic parents, parents who put themselves before you. And these wounds are bound to have an impact on you. You can't come out of childhood scot-free, wound-free, and go right into your light. We all have to struggle. We all have to struggle against our own demons, against our own shadows. So what do we do to struggle? Number one, I do think it is a struggle in and of itself just to identify these wounds, because a lot of people don't want to even consider that they are wounds, because truth be known, when you've been wounded and you're living in a wounded environment, it feels like a normal. Okay, so if you come from an alcoholic family and you're now in an alcoholic family, it feels very normal. It feels like a home, familiar and familial. Many years ago, I wrote this song just for fun called Dirty Fishbowl. If any one of you wants to have a copy of it, just write me at Dr. Judy at 𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗠𝗡𝗃_center.com, and I'll share some of it with you so that you can get the poetry of it. But the song really centers around fish living in a dirty fishbowl. And that is, again, another metaphor for us living in an environment that's kind of like a fishbowl. It's limited, it's limiting, the water's not too pure and clean, but we're used to it. So some of the lyrics express this. swimming around in a fishbowl, not used to it. Somebody's trying to clean my water, go away and don't tamper with my waters. Just let it be. Let me just marinate in my dirty fishbowl because I'm used to it, and stop trying to elevate me. Stop trying to paradigm shift me. Stop trying to let me live a cleaner life because I don't want to. I like it this way. Leave me alone. I like my dirty water. So that's the premise, is that we really have a force that works against us to make sure that we don't become a better version of me, because let's face it, that's a lot of work. Recently, I decided that I made a terrible, terrible mistake in life by dropping out of Taekwondo. I started Taekwondo many, many years ago, and I achieved black belt status, and then I dropped out. How stupid of me. And then I regretted it because my body suffered. I didn't grow in that area. It wasn't doing me well. And then about 4 or 5 months ago, I called my master, who's now 80 years old, and I asked him if I can come back. And he didn't even discuss it with me. He just said, show up at uh, 9 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, and then show up again on Friday at noon. And so I just respect him so much that I did what he said, and now I'm back into it. So I'm trying to be a better version of me, but in the meantime, I'm being beaten up by a small, compact master who's kicking my butt twice a week, and it doesn't feel good. However, I couldn't be more proud of myself for just showing up. And truth be known, I'm just not very good at it. Hopefully, I'll catch up a little bit, but it's not the same when you drop something that's making you a better me and then abandon it for so long, because you're going to pay a price. So, what does better me look like? It looks like work, it looks like commitment, it looks like consistency. Better me shows up in so many areas of life, and each time you have choices. You can either elevate yourself and evolve, or you can devolve, and the choice is yours. Okay, so let's take a look at all the things that make us better, and then let's take a look at childhood wounds that suffocate this better, and then we'll get into why it is so important to pick another person that's also trying to make themselves a better version of themselves. And then for the last part of this discussion, we're going to talk about what happens when we take two people who are self-actualizing, a term borrowed from Maslow, self-actualization, work on themselves, better themselves, and then become growth partners in this betterment, and have each other's back and push each other up the ladder of evolution. What a concept. And I find that it is such an important concept that I want to underscore it by doing the show, of course, and inviting you into the discussion, and hopefully inspire somebody out there to do the work, because all the time we're evolving and devolving and evolving and devolving. And many years ago, I was evolving into this black belt, and then I got lazy, and then I devolved. Why did I devolve? Who knows? All the excuses in the world. I moved, I lived too far, I got too busy, I was older, I didn't feel physically fit for the challenge, and the excuses go on. And the more the excuses went on, the further and further I got from my light, which is the self-actualized better version of me. And no matter what area of life we're talking about, this is always going to be the case. So we could pick another area. Let's say our diet. Let's say that we're trying to be a better version of me through eating cleaner. Well, in general, I can do that. However, once in a while, I might drop the ball, and I might eat something that's completely horrible and greasy and carved up and sugary and whatever. It's just that I'm trying to do less of that and more of the other. So when I say be a better version of yourself, I'm not saying you're going to be perfect. Who is? I'm certainly not, and I don't know anybody who is. However, we want to weigh on the side of the better me. So that means that if I eat a lot of stuff that's not good for my body, I might spend the next day drinking more water, or the next day making sure that I get healthy protein and more leafy green vegetables and so on. And wouldn't you want a person that's working on their better version of their me so that when you do meet, you elevate each other? So this is a call-in show, everybody, and I want to hear from you. And I also want to hear how you are influenced by other people. I know that I certainly am, and I'm always looking for my tribe, so to speak. I do have a tribe. However, not everybody in my tribe is working on being a better version of themselves. And it's so important that I hang around people who have a positive influence on me. For example, I have friends that don't really care about the quality of food that they eat. And then I might go out to dinner with them or might get invited over to their home. And what happens to me? Well, there's the cheese and crackers, and there is the ice cream, and there are the cookies, and there is the cake. And pretty much I might cave into temptation. And so I really want you to all understand how important it is to be in the right environment, because like the dirty fishbowl, if you're just in this dirty fishbowl, if you go to your kitchen right now and look into your pantry and your refrigerator, then the dirty fishbowl can be represented by the things in your pantry and in your refrigerator. And if you don't pull out the dirt, then guess what? 2 o'clock in the morning, you're hungry, there's ice cream in there, that there's leftover cake from the party, and it's just really, really difficult. Now, if you become proactive, one of my favorite words, then what do is you go in there and you pull out all the stuff before you get hungry and you get rid of it. I know how horrible. Get rid of that horribly delicious cake and that horribly delicious ice cream. And what a shame it is, because there are lots and lots of positive reinforcers to those goodies, not to mention how it elevates our endorphins, our feel-good drugs in our body. However, there's a price tag, and that's what I'm getting at. The price tag. For every action, there's a reaction. So if you're going to eat that cake, if you're going to eat those cookies, if you're going to eat that greasy pizza, good, do it once in a while. I'm not saying deprive yourself. However, remember that you will pay a price. You'll pay a price. Your arteries will pay a price. Your blood sugar level will pay a price. Your entire energy level will pay a price. So let's go through the mind map and go to that part of the mind map that I'm now talking about called encoding. So if you look at panel number 3, okay, so panel number 3, thank you, is the DNA strand of your first encoding. And what is an encoding? Is everything that you encode into the fiber of your being. Thoughts, behaviors, patterns, food choices, relationships, habits, all of these are encoded into you because you repeat them over and over, because your parents have put negative core beliefs in your head about messages like you're not good enough or not lovable or not beautiful, but we encode all of this stuff. And when we're encoded, it's hard to let go of the code because it's ingrained in you. So these encodings lead to more of the same thoughts, patterns, habits, lifestyle, and so on. And so we become very steeped in our squat. However, if we do not strive to be a better version of the me, look what happens. No free rides, okay? Do whatever you want and pay the price. So here's the price. Look at panel number 4. So number 4 is the metaphor for chaos. You can see all the bonds are broken. People are flying all over the place. There's toxicity in the air. It's chaotic. So chaos can occur in many areas of one's life. And if you're not striving to be a better me, then you will experience all kinds of chaos, financial chaos, relationship chaos, health chaos, any kind of chaos, really, spiritual chaos. So why does chaos occur? Because we're not managing the me, okay? So in my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, which you are all welcome to a PDF version of, or you can buy it on Amazon.com for the hard copy version. I talk about being the cause versus being at the effect of. And what does it mean to be the cause? Being the cause means that you're proactive. Being the cause means that you have power. Being the cause means that you're driving the bus and you're not just under the wheels of the bus or sitting in the back seat and letting somebody else drive you. Being the cause is agency, okay? When we're working on the better version of the me, we're looking into tapping into our agency. And I don't have to tell you that sometimes that is not pleasant. So if we want to evolve, sometimes that means that we have to go back to school and learn new skills. If we want to evolve, we have to do daily habits that may not really jive with your sense of comfort, like getting up early or going to the gym or going to work out at taekwondo or going to yoga or whatever you do. But if you don't do it, so don't do it. And then you will experience chaos. Same goes for money. If you decide that you're going to spend your money frivolously without a means to earn your money or make interest on your money and save your money, then again, chaos, financial chaos. So this touches every single aspect of everybody's life. I'm not unique. You're not unique. This is just kind of a universal truth. It's sort of like if you don't brush your teeth in the morning and you keep doing that, then eventually you're going to have stains on your teeth and plaque buildup and cavities and what have you, and poor gum health. And so you get the drift. You understand how important it is to be proactive. So let's talk a little bit. Any questions in the chat room, or anybody else want to call in and let's talk about becoming the better version of me, meaning you. Any questions in the chat room? Yes, go ahead.
Can you provide examples of activities or practices that promote synergy between partners?
Yes. First of all, you've got to vet your partners very carefully, whether they be your business partners or romantic partner or friends. So if you want synergy, you want people who have similar ethics, similar values, people who are invested in the best of your best. So to me, a great friend is somebody that really cares how I'm doing. A great friend is somebody who will be encouraging and will know not to put that big fat slice of cake in front of me when they know that it's really, really unhealthy for my blood sugar level, or will not try to persuade me to do an activity with them that cancels out an activity that I am committed to. Now, I do understand that I am the ultimate controller of my fate here. I get to say yes and no, but I'd rather be with people who are going to enhance my success. So that's what I mean was the question about vetting people, yes? Choosing partners that are synergistic. Can you go over the question again? I want to make sure that
Yes. Can you provide examples of activities or practices that promote synergy between partners?
Okay, so some activities specifically might be going to the gym where other people are doing the same workout. In Taekwondo, one of the reasons I love to go is because there are other people practicing what I'm practicing, falling into a routine. If you worship, if you're in a certain spiritual group or religious group, going to your place of worship and having synergistic members of the congregation um, teaching lessons that enhance the group as a whole, or offering classes that are going to elevate you. Other examples might be trying to think of specific examples. Like, for example, if you're an animal lover, which I am, you might want to volunteer at the 𝗬PCA and all be on the same mission of helping animals. So it's again, synergy is 1 + 1 is greater than 2. And that's why it's so important to be around like-minded people, but not just like-minded, like in ethics, like in principles, like in basic worldview, like in kindness. Kindness is a very important factor in picking your partners. If they are, I do a lot of work on helping people heal from narcissistic abuse. If you're picking people who are not empathetic, that's a problem because they have a lack of an empathy chip, which means that they don't care. So if they don't care about you, and they're not really interested in your betterment. On the contrary, people who have high narcissistic traits are interested in vampiring and using your energy. So it's quite the contrary. Instead of making you a better me, they want to make themselves a better me at your expense. You see the difference? One is working to make themselves better so that they could be better for themselves. They could be better role models for their family, their community, their children, so that they can, in essence, share their light. Another person who might be on more of a narcissistic scale of things may be trying to enhance him or herself to make a better version of the me that will take from you to make them better. So they'll take your ideas to make themselves better without, of course, giving you any credit. They may take your money without paying you back. They may take your time and waste your time and give you some indication that they're interested in a relationship with you when really all they're trying to do is use you to fill their hole in the soul. So this extends across many different relationships. So again, back to synergy. If we're looking at synergy, the opposite of synergy is vampiring, okay? And if we go to panel number 5, you could see panel 5 is really the metaphor for building a better version of me. So all of those little orbs can be metaphors for individualisms. So there's a yellow individualism and a pink one and a blue one. And some of these isms are trying to fill their hole in the soul, so they're not really making themselves better. Some have no boundaries, and so the whatever is better leaks out anyway. Some of these individualisms have walls, like in narcissism. There's this narcissistic wall where people cannot really get in. And so there's no ability to bond and form something beautiful. And so what happens with people who are just into their individualisms and not really building something of better quality, of better version for themselves to eventually share their light, crash and burn. So if you go to panel number 6, you will see that these isms are going to break down. And why are they going to break down? Because they're not built properly. If you're feeding your individual's isms with, I'll refer to it as drug, sex, rock and roll. If you're filling the hole in the soul and you're just dumping a lot of toxicity in there, if you're filling your individual isms with any kind of addiction, any kind of a selfishness, any kind of a taking energy just to exist, then there's no build. And whatever isn't being sustained and nutrified, if you will, spiritually, psychologically, physically, if you're not adding nutrients to your ism, well, you're either going to implode or you're going to explode. And if you go to panel number 6, you can see that visually. There it is. There's an implosion or an explosion, meaning that these isms don't really come together in a synergistic way. They just kind of blow apart or blow other people apart. And on a macro level, we could see that this blow apart situation can manifest as world conflict, world wars, which unfortunately we're all facing global crisis. And this is where we face our own individual crisis. And if you have read anything by 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which there's a book called People of the Lie and Road Less Traveled. 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was a psychiatrist, and he wrote about studying human evil and looking at how to cure human evil, which is a very, very difficult endeavor. Then you can understand his definition of breakdown as a curse by design or an opportunity for breakthrough. So people can break down and then just disappear, suicide, homicide, self-destruction, or maybe things get so bad that there's an actual breakthrough. And just had the pleasure of talking to a lovely gentleman who runs a rehab center. And of course, he was telling me about people who come to that edge where they break down and then have to go into recovery for alcohol or other substances because they have lost their ability to have boundaries and to act in their own best interests. It's as if they've lost their direction, and now they need an executively functioning person to hold them responsible for themselves. So what kind of wound would cause such a thing? So if we go back to panel number 1 and we talk about what would cause a hole in the soul that would lead to drugs, sex, and rock and roll, we could talk about, for example, children who are spoiled and smothered. If children are spoiled and smothered, they don't get the opportunity to build strength and build a backbone and develop their healthy ism. If they're just depending on their parents to feed them and spoil them and do everything for them, they're not going to learn anything. They're not going to grow. So that would be a case of arrested development. So as they grow bigger and bigger and have core beliefs like I'm incapable because they are incapable, or even worse, think that they're very capable because the parents tell them how wonderful they are and how much better they are than other people, then they're building this false case of narcissism in the child. The child is all pumped up, but then when reality hits, they just don't know how to swim in the real world. So now we're back in that dirty fishbowl that parents didn't provide them with clean water and nutrients and the ability to get strong and swim and survive. And so now they're breaking down. Okay, another question. Sure, go ahead.
What are some common communication problems that couples should avoid?
Some common communication problems. Okay, so if we're talking about a better me plus a better me, how about avoiding who's right and who's wrong? How about looking at stepping into somebody else's shoes and just really, really listening to their position and then coming up with a mutual synergistic way by renegotiating their worldview of the relationship. For example, let's say somebody wants to, I'll just try to keep it simple. So they're arguing about the who should do what in the house. Okay, so one says, oh, you're so lazy. The other one says, oh, you're so demanding, and this goes on and on and on. And so you could see that they're pushing each other's isms. So there's no interconnection here. They're just kind of like clashing. You're right, you're wrong, you're right, you're wrong. And this goes bouncing around forever. And they're doing a what the Freud. So step number one is just stop and say, hey, we love each other. We live together. We want to function at the optimal level. What do we both need to do to run a proper household? Let's have that discussion. Does anybody need better skills? Maybe one needs to learn how to literally use the vacuum cleaner, or needs to schedule their time better, or needs to get in better habits. And then you look at this thing, you pull back and you look at the situation. So in other words, instead of engaging in the problem, you pull back from the problem and you identify it rather than with it. And so you stop blaming the person, and you stop shaming the person, and you stop projecting on the other person. And then you look at the thing over there, the problem, which is how we're going to keep a nice house. And then you get into a synergistic, solution-oriented process with that person. And you both agree that something needs to be done, and who's going to do what, and what would be the best and highest use of the people's skills and knowledge and so on. Like, for example, I would be horrible at fixing things. I'm just not mechanical. So it would be better if somebody else did that function. I happen to like cleaning bathrooms. I don't mind that. So, that's the kind of discussion. Who likes what? What are you willing to do? What skills do you need to get the job done? And then you're working synergistically. I hope that answered the question. Anybody else? Anybody want to call in and let's talk about building the better me? Because without a better me, we don't have a world to live in. It's just not going to happen, right? You cannot think that our world, our planet is going to be better if you're hanging around and sleeping all day and not contributing and not teaching your children proper boundaries and values. It's not going to happen. You could blame the world. You can blame the system. You can blame anybody you want. But it all starts with me. What am I going to do about it? What am I going to do to role model to my children, to my patients, to you? What do I want to role model? And then maybe some of you will grab it. Maybe some of you won't. Maybe some of you will only grab it when you fall into crisis. Maybe your crisis will be a breakthrough to you as opposed to a breakdown that you can't get out of, because at some point things hit a critical mass. If somebody who has a propensity toward cancer, right, keeps smoking and smoking, there's a point at which those cells will turn carcinogenic, and it'll be really hard to come back from that. Or with a lung disease, at a certain point, a smoker is going to get emphysema. So again, my favorite word is proactive. What can you do? Think, sit and think, and take, even if you need to take a pencil and see the trajectory of your behavior. If you keep doing what you're doing, what's going to happen? If I keep sitting in my chair and not exercising, I will be in pain. My back will hurt, my legs will go numb, I'll have poor circulation, I'll feel lethargic, I won't evolve, I'll have poor posture, I will lose muscle strength. Okay, it's going to hurt. Okay, now, if I go to the gym or go to Taekwondo, that'll hurt too. So I'd rather hurt from evolving than devolving. And go ahead, we have another question. So sure.
How do external forces, such as family dynamics or social pressure, impact relationship health?
Say that again,
How do external factors, such as family dynamics and social pressures, impact relationship health?
A lot. So that goes back to the childhood blueprint. Okay, so if you have parents that are non-nurturing, then look what will happen. Let's just take that one wound, because abandonment, emotional abandonment, is one of the most horrific wounds a child can experience if they're not being mirrored and attuned to and loved and encouraged. There's not a great blueprint to grow with. So how's it going to impact? That person is going to, let's go through the mind map. So let's say that the main wound is abandonment from mom, dad, significantly relevant caretakers. The reaction to that wound might be that the person eventually starts to shut down and become very passive. And as they shut down and encode the messages from their childhood, they may encode things like, oh, well, I'm being ignored because I'm just not lovable. I'm not loved because I'm too stupid. Oh, my family doesn't love me because I'm not, and you fill in the blank. So that these encodings are born out of the treatment that we receive in early childhood. And that's why we do the What the Freud. And so what happens is that we then pick a partner that matches the childhood wounds. So you might pick a partner who ignores and abandons you. You might pick a partner that is very similar in dynamics to your parents. And then what happens is panels 4, 5, 6, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. Okay, so that's the cycle. Wounds, reactions, and codings lead to chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And in order to break through, you've got to start becoming the better me that I'm talking about. And that entails the mind map journey that I've created, which entails going into these childhood wounds, re-examining these core beliefs that are sometimes more hidden than you know, that live in your psyche and run the show and dictate to you who you are and who other people are, in the sense that it limits your view of yourself in the world. And then you walk around thinking that all relationships are going to abandon you. All relationships are poisonous. All people hate you. All people think you're stupid. So this is the projection. So it's vital. Our parental influence is vital to our mental health. And if we don't want to live at the effect of parental influence, then I highly recommend that you do the mind map journey and start to unravel all of this garbage that is now leading you into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So we can break that all up and break it all down so that you can start to shift out of the mess by acknowledging the betrayals and the abandonments and getting the psychological poison out so that you don't have to be imploding or exploding with it. It's really, really important that you don't just bury this away and ignore it. You can't close your eyes to it because it's going to come out. It's like closing your eyes to something that's going on internally in your body, physically. You can close your eyes to it, but one day you'll wake up and whatever that physical dis-ease is has now manifested into something that's a little bit bigger than you thought it was. Same thing with psychological dis-ease. And I call it dis-ease because these childhood wounds make you feel ill at ease, literally. They're a disconnect. So there is a disconnect from your family of origin, which leaves you feeling in pain and disconnected and full of complex PTSD, which are reactions of old unhealed childhood wounds. And if you don't delve into them and clean the slate, so to speak, then you are left with it lingering in your psyche and playing out in your relationships. And that better me is not going to be a better me. It's just going to be the same old repetitive cycle. And the sad thing is that you're going to pick somebody else that's the same old repetitive cycle of their family of origins wounds. And you're not even going to have a true relationship. You're just going to have a horrible connection to wounds. Wound meets wound, and wound bonds with wound, and wound activates wound, and then everything breaks down. So look at the visual of the mind map. It's pretty well spelled out. And I've been doing this work for so many years, and it's the same pattern. Everybody who walks into the treatment room is required to go through all the steps of the mind map. You can't skip a step. In other words, you can't just skip over childhood wounds and go right to cognitive behavioral therapy, because cognitive behavioral therapy might locate the negative thoughts and beliefs that you hold. However, it doesn't really delve into necessarily the cause and the blueprint and how the childhood wounds created those negative core beliefs. So you see, there's just no skipping the process. If you want to get a degree in school, for example, you can't just skip over some things and not take this or that test or not take this or that class. It doesn't matter if it's school or skill or anything. If you're in your own line of work or you're working for somebody, same thing applies. If your boss says to you, well, sorry, you skipped over these steps and that's why the report isn't thorough, somebody's going to call you out on it and say, go back, finish the work, take a look and see what you skipped over and go back into it and complete it. So why I call my show Dr. Judy WTF is because we keep repeating things. Like Freud says, repetition principle. We keep repeating things from the past that are incomplete. And there's a concept that I write about in my book called the 𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗡 effect. And this effect is a lack of closure effect. So when there are psychological files that are open, then they're not closed and complete. And then we go back into them to try to heal them. There are a couple of episodes that I did that are worthy of you looking up. One is called The Herder Can't Be the Healer, meaning that we keep going back to people that hurt us to try to heal us so that we can close the psychological files. And then I did another one called The Herder Can't Be the Healer Unless, and that unless is, of course, if the herder elevates, has a paradigm shift, becomes a better and higher human being, and then comes back into the situation and is able to self-reflect and self-correct and repair. That rarely happens, by the way. It really happens that somebody does a 180-degree turnaround. That's a huge amount of work, okay? And it does happen, However, don't wait for it, okay? And there's another question. Go ahead.
Could embarrassment be the reason why I don't want to get along with new people?
With new people? This is a very general question. Can embarrassment be the reason you don't want to get along or meet new people? Is that it? Meet new people?
There's more, sorry. Could embarrassment be the reason why I don't want to get along with new people who I feel aren't even as bad as the narcissist I hold on. Could embarrassment be the reason why I don't want to get along with new people who I feel aren't even as bad as the narcissist I have been with? Or am I judging myself too hard?
Well, okay, first of all, after you've been narcissistically abused, your self-esteem is probably in the toilet. You're probably embarrassed that that person put you down so hard that you believe that you're a nothing and a nobody. And if you believe that, then that is just like another crack in your lens of perception upon yourself. And so that you're going into situations and you're thinking, I'm embarrassed by who I am. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. And so I think that narcissistic person could have ripped open your childhood wounds, and now you're embarrassed to face people because you don't feel very good about yourself. You're not proud. You don't feel like you've got a healthy me to present because whatever healthy me you had going into the relationship has been stomped on and spit on and walked all over, and now you're wondering what the Freud happened. This is my fault, and I would say let's take the word fault out of it. Let's say that you had a vulnerability to be loved, and let's say that you're a people pleaser, and somebody came along and doused you with gifts and presents and promises, but they didn't really deliver, but you believed them, and then they didn't come through. Are you going to automatically conclude that there's something wrong with you or something wrong with them? So Alice Miller says it well. She says that in childhood, children always blame themselves. So if mommy says you're unlovable and stupid and ugly and not worthy, they're going to believe mom. So in this sense, it's almost like your tendency, if you are a people pleaser and you've been injured, which everybody has, then your tendency will be that they did nothing wrong. They just dumped you because you're not worthy, and now you go into some kind of shame that you're faulty, and they exposed your faultiness, and now you are reactivated in your negative core belief that you're not good enough, and you go out into the world, and even though those people may not be same level narcissistic or maybe not at all, you're already hiding and shameful because you don't like what that other person brought out in you because you bought into it. Okay, that's why it's so important to heal from narcissistic abuse. And speaking of which, I created a video called Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. And you can purchase the video in and of itself. You can call me or write me about it. My email, Dr. Judy at 𝗧icologicalhealingcenter.com, and contact me. You could do the whole process. I think it's a very thorough process, deep diving into narcissistic injuries, what they do to the psyche, the trauma that it causes, the depression that it causes, the low self-esteem that is created, the inability to come out of it and trust again. All of those things factor in. So I hope I answered that question. And if I think we have time for maybe one other question or a call in if anybody would like to call in. I think I've spoiled people now, and I've answered so many questions in the chat room. Now nobody wants to call. They'll just chat it up in the chat room. However, it's so much more interesting and specific if you do call in, because I can then address things in much more detail. So I hope everyone is getting a better picture of why it is important to be a better version of the me that you are, and to take a deep dive into your childhood wounds so that they don't limit your growth, they don't limit your light, to delve into your reactions and your horrible core beliefs that cause you to stay stuck and eventually activate into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And then the importance of picking somebody else that is also on a growth path so that you can put your better me plus your better me into a better we. So if you look at panel 7, that is the panel that illustrates synergy. So if you're the blue-ism, me-ism, and you're pairing up with a yellow me-ism and you're both elevating and improving and you have each other's back, look at all the synergy and light you can generate. And what can you do with that light? That is that we thing. It's the me plus me makes a better we, and all that light can generate so much good to other people and the relationship. It's like fertilizer to the relationship, and it's like fertilizer to our planet. And that's how we make a better planet that we can all have a synergistic relationship with. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining in. And if you have any thoughts or questions or would like a consultation, please do contact me and we will do that. Okay, good night, everyone.